everyone. Welcome to What the Flick. Ben Mankiewicz, Christy Lemire, Alonso Duralde, Matt Atchity. The gang is all here. We have 3 movies to run through, and we'll begin with one that we all loved, Friends with Kids.
We're doing John Carter first.
We're doing John Carter first.
We'll begin with a movie we all love, John Carter.
We all love that one too.
John Carter tells the story of a former Civil War soldier, a veteran, out prospecting for gold and suddenly ends up on Mars.
It could happen.
As one does.
You know what? That happens to me all the time. That's why I stopped looking for gold. Because I wake up and say, what the fuck am I doing on Mars?
Fate has brought you here, John Carter.
So we did a segment last week where we showed the studio trailer, the Disney trailer, and then a homemade trailer. And I think we touched on something because I got asked by 3 people, are you going to see John Carter? What's its deal? I mean, it did not register as interesting in any way to me, but people were curious. They were a little baffled by the trailer. I think it hurt them because I don't think any of these people intended to see it.
Well, having seen the movie, I'm still totally confused by it.
By the trailer or
by
the movie?
By the movie. Like, it's 2 hours and 11 minutes long. I leaned over to Glenn Whipp, like halfway through. I'm like, are you totally confused?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. Because it's like simultaneously too much exposition, and yet it's totally convoluted and confusing. I don't get it.
Yeah, it was. I didn't find it that convoluted and confusing, but I may have managed to get through that because for 2 hours and 11 minutes, I was super bored.
It's
It is
draggy.
dull.
I thought it was fun.
And I don't know about if they're going to do this in regular theaters, but at the press screening, they handed you a glossary.
Yeah.
And I just immediately thought, that's not ever a good
Tharps
sign.
are not therms, and therms are not
Yeah,
tharps.
I don't want
Exactly, yeah.
Know the
it's
difference.
Like Doom
I want
all
to
over again.
Matt obviously is going to defend this movie in a way that we're not, but I'm tired of movies with, and maybe it's that I'm becoming a crotchety old man, and this is a 5-10 year period that's happening here, but more 10, 15. But movies would take you to places like Barsoom and Farsoom and have people named Taj and Dia. I mean, I want a movie. Dejah Thoris, right? I want a movie.
She's hot.
What's wrong with a movie set in Wichita with Kyle and
With a guy named Steve
and Elaine? You know.
We got that.
The Princess
Elaine. We got that, and it was called Twister, and it sucked.
Better than this.
Here's the weird thing. I mean, yes, the thing about John Carter is that, as we talked about when we talked about the trailer, it is the blueprint for the next century's worth of science fiction. You know, Avatar stole from it, and Star Wars, and Superman, and all these other places. But here's the thing. That doesn't do you any good when you're watching this movie and thinking, "Wow, I've seen all this before." Even if the original story did it first, it all feels familiar because we've seen all the rehashed versions.
Well, I think I want you to explain that because when you say Avatar stole from it, people obviously saw Avatar first. They're going to see this and think the opposite.
Yeah.
So
Okay. No. Yeah. This is from a century old. Like literally, I think this is the centenary. 1912 was the Princess of Mars was the first of the John Carter books that Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote. I think they were serialized and then published as novels, and a lot of the concepts that are in this story, in the Burroughs story, in the novel that's the origin point for all this, turns up in other stuff. You know, the whole notion of the Earthman among the aliens, the thing where he can leap long distances, which in the original Superman comics he didn't fly, he leapt.
The little vehicles look like the Star Wars ships, the individual flight.
Right, and
vehicles
the princess who's in trouble, who actually at one point literally like leaves a ship in a little one-person device, and like all this stuff that you've seen in other movies. So it's like, yes, okay, fine. All the other people took it from Edgar Rice Burroughs, but now that we're seeing the Edgar Rice Burroughs on screen, it feels like a rehash of all the movies that we've seen in the interim century,
which are better.
That borrowed from it, yeah, which were better movies in toto anyway. But just it all feels, even though it was fresh when he did it, by now it's stale. Even if it was the OG of this stuff, you know.
And putting it in 3D doesn't make it seem fresher at all. It's a 3D conversion that does not help at all. It's those glasses that you hate, not the ones like the ones that you're wearing, but like the big clunky ones.
The red.
I took them off for a while.
I did too. I put them on top of my head.
You liked it.
Please.
I enjoyed the movie. First of all, to your point about the names, I think that's a weird point. I understand where you're coming from.
I don't care what your wife says.
Right. My wife said to say fuck you.
Han Solo and Darth Vader sounded kind of silly the first time.
Yeah, I know, but now it seems like they're trying too hard. That's all. And obviously at some point you get tired of it.
And I think at a certain level, the original work suffers from that because it's been done to death. right? But for when Burroughs did that, like that was the new thing. It lent some exotic feeling to those characters, and it reads different. Undoubtedly, it reads different than it sounds on the screen. But at this point, everyone's taken that idea, but you can't go back and change the characters' names to something.
No, I got that. It's not, and that's not a particular indictment of John Carter. But the idea that it doesn't. This movie did not feel exotic.
See,
like
I thought
it didn't.
the story
it's not
worked for me.
fun. It should be fun. This should be a big
I did have
adventure.
fun. I thought it was fun.
It all felt familiar to me.
Yeah. And plotted,
I had a lot of
dreary,
fun. The biggest problem I had was the middle of it when Carter and Dejah Thoris go on the little trip in the middle down the river with the boat.
And they find the blue stuff.
And they find the blue stuff, and there kind of becomes this discussion of the politics of the world. And it was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I could
Just
care
kiss
less.
her already.
Right? Just like get back to fighting aliens, get back to the fight scenes. I could care less.
And
but
also,
But I thought it was good. I thought the beginning of it, him in that world and getting taken by the green aliens, like that was
who
cool.
all look alike, by the way.
Yeah,
Except for the
No,
one
I
who's
didn't
missing a
think so.
tusk,
I
they
didn't
all
think so.
looked alike.
No,
White people always say that.
I know.
Green
I'm a
aliens.
racist against green Martians, but in the movie, you don't linger on any of them long enough to know.
Totally.
Okay, this one has the thing.
No,
on the bridge of his nose,
the
and that one-
challenger to the leader, he had one of his tusks ripped off. That was the only guy
He's
who
the
I
guy
can
who stands
identify.
out. Exactly.
Right.
Also,
yeah.
I was surprised to see that Willem Dafoe voices the good guy and Thomas Hayden Church is the bad guy. I was surprised to see it. That also confused me.
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know. I just don't think with these movies and the bad ones at least. I don't know. There's no identifiable characters. Nothing feels developed. They all feel like they're retreads.
And I think that's part
all
of it. I think part of it is in John Carter's case, it's the weakness of the pulp style. In that they're not, pulp literature is not about character development. It's about adventure.
Yeah, all right.
Conan's the same thing, right? I mean, in
then
the original Conan,
adventure should be better.
well,
Yeah,
but in
let
the
him
original
fun.
Conan the Barbarian, they really, Oliver Stone, who co-wrote the script, they really take a lot away from the original stories and the original way Conan is, and actually kind of artificially create a character arc, which is a big stretch for pulp, because in pulp fiction,
It's all about the immediate.
it's what's happening to them. How do they get out of this jam? It's not do they learn to be a better person, right?
Although I will say that I appreciate that Dejah is kind of a badass and not a damsel in distress.
Yeah, no,
Like,
she's smart
brilliant,
and she's a good
she
fighter.
Can fight, and she looks great in a little bikini.
But the thing is, I feel like we've seen this like Joseph Campbell reluctant warrior shtick a million times now. Oh, I don't want to go fight. Okay, I must fight. And when the green guys keep saying like, oh, we never fly, that means Act 3 they're gonna fly. Just stuff like that. It's like this feels like a movie that you could just recite in your sleep. And they got Michael Chabon to co-write it, the guy who wrote Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, and he's a guy who understands about the power of pulp and the power of comic books and that sort of thing and how to turn it into art, but he does not do that.
And we should mention that Andrew Stanton directed it. Two of the best Pixar movies, WALL-E and Finding Nemo, come from Andrew Stanton.
but this
is his
is-
first live action film.
But this is no
and
Ghost
fun.
Protocol. It's no Ghost Protocol.
I completely disagree. I like this
sorry.
movie a lot. I feel like it gets
Sorry,
caught
I'm
up a little bit
dropping
in staying too true to the source material and trying to add too much about the world. And I think that the writers would have done better to kind of take a page out of what Peter Jackson and his writing team had done with Lord of the Rings and cut what they need to cut and stay true to the story. I feel like you could probably cut 15, 20 minutes out of John Carter and have a much tighter film.
It is long.
But I think that there are sequences in this movie that are great. The sequence where he's fighting the green Martians and it's cutting back and forth to that cemetery scene, I found riveting. I thought that was...
With the parallel editing between the fight and what happened to his family.
Yeah, I thought that was really fantastic. I found that really moving.
I found that silly. No, he just
I
totally
found it an
did
obvious
not-
device.
Yeah, I didn't.
The parallel editing.
Maybe I saw a different movie than you.
We got it. We're over time, but I do want to mention Taylor Kitsch because I think he's a really good actor, and I thought there were moments here when he was allowed to be, because he was at times the only real person in the movie, literally, the only real human in the movie. Once he got to Mars, but when he's vulnerable. And when he's not trying to tough guy it up, I see moments where I think he could be a pretty big star.
And he has some glibness to him,
yeah,
too, which is
but it wasn't
appealing.
enough of that. And those were, I thought, good moments. And then I thought...
I actually felt, not having seen Friday Night Lights, I at the end I was like, I really can't judge whether this guy's a good actor or not, because this movie doesn't give him enough stuff to do that I could really.
Yeah, well,
my
the
jury's
scenes
out
in the
on
old
that,
West and Earth, I saw little bits where I thought that, but we needed more of that. And there's very little of that on Barsoom.
We should call out for the Rome fans that it seems like half the cast of Rome is in this.
Yeah, and Dominic West from The Wire, and they borrowed Bryan Cranston
for like 2
Breaking
seconds.
Bad.
Bryan Cranston's
I know, but it's like the great TV that's out now. We're gonna. I imagine that casting directors know where to go to get these really.
So you will be better off with almost any HBO box set than this movie.
Totally.
Oh, I disagree.
No, you're all right. What do you have? So we'll start with you.
The fanboy vote, I give it a 7.5.
7.5. All right.
A 6, and even that feels generous, kind of.
A 3.
Yeah. I gave it a 4, and I would, if I forced to choose between 5 or 3, I'd go 3. That pulls it to a 5.1. You
recommendation.
Win. Yes, exactly.
But where is it in Tomato World?
About 58 right now.
Right.
And dropping.
It started really high and then it's been dropping because critics are haters. They can't have a good time.
All right, bye.